What is up, you guys? This is MiniSuperHeroesToday. And in today's video, I'm going to be kicking off a new weekly series leading up to Avengers 4. Every week, I'm going to be doing a showcase from every MCU movie in chronological order, showing off some of the figures from that movie and some of my custom designs. Now, for these early MCU movies leading up to the first Avengers, there actually weren't any sets from any MCU movies before the first Avengers movie. So all of these are going to be using figures from other movies and or purist customs to help get us through phase 1. So without further ado, let's start this series off by revisiting the movie that kicked off the entire MCU, Iron Man. Alright, so let's start off with the main man himself, Tony Stark. So, the Tony that I used is really using a lot of pieces from Iron Man 3 from the Tony Stark from the Malibu Mansion attack set. The pieces from that, of course, are the head, the torso, and the legs. I really like the torso because it's a nice casual torso with an arc reactor on it, and I like that determined face for a young Tony Stark from the first Iron Man film. The hair I pulled from Superman because it's got that nice wavy hair that Tony had in the first movie. His haircut in the first movie, in my opinion, looks the most different from all of the other movies, so I wanted to make sure that I reflected that with my custom from Iron Man. So, the only other update to this figure are the arms, which I pulled from the collectible minifigure series of soccer players from a few years back. What I really like about those is you've got the white sleeve on top and the tan arm on bottom, so it makes Tony look like he's got a layered shirt with short sleeves on. So, I really like the way that this Tony turned out, and let's keep rolling to show you some more figures from Iron Man. Next up, we've got Iron Man Mark 1. I actually did a video on this as well, so, you can check that out. But the helmet is from War Machine from Iron Man 3. I think that it's good to have a very similar Iron Man helmet than to use something completely different. So I used the War Machine helmet. I used a neck drape piece with a 1x1 round blue stud for the first version of the arc reactor. Underneath that, I used a torso for TC-14 from Star Wars to have these wires showing to show that this version wasn't 100% complete, but it was enough to get Tony Stark out of that cave. And don't forget,
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps. Well, I'm sorry. I'm not Tony Stark.
So moving down, the legs are from War Machine from Iron Man 3, and if you look at the feet, I put two 1x1 gray pieces on the bottom to give him just a little extra height compared to a normal minifigure. So that's Iron Man Mark 1, so why don't we move on to Iron Man Mark 2. Alright, so next up we've got Iron Man Mark II, which is perhaps the easiest custom to make in this collection. The helmet is once again from War Machine from Iron Man 3, and then the body, including the torso and the legs, are from Cyberman from the Doctor Who LEGO Dimensions pack. I think that it works really well for an unpainted Iron Man armor, and it's even got a built-in arc reactor, so it makes for the perfect purist custom. So let's move on to the real Iron Man coming up. Alright, so for the armor that Tony mainly uses in the first Iron Man movie, I went with this figure from the first Avengers film. I like that it's got that circle arc reactor, and I like how plain the suit is as well. I didn't want this version to be super updated because I like it to look a little clunky and not too terribly detailed to show that this is from the first Iron Man movie. So, this figure from the first Avengers film will work great for recreating any scenes from the first Iron Man movie. Next up, we've got Rhodey from Iron Man. Now, this is a pretty simple figure. I just used the Rhodey head that comes with War Machine underneath, and I used Lex Luthor's suit and pants. Now, if you guys remember from the first Iron Man movie, it was actually Terrence Howard that played him, and just a little fun Marvel trivia for you, the reason that they recast Terrence Howard is when it came time for Iron Man 2, he was demanding the same pay rate that Robert Downey Jr. was to play Iron Man. Obviously, Marvel didn't want to pay him that much, so they went with Don Cheadle, who in my opinion did just a little better job at playing Rhodey.
Next time, baby.
There wasn't a next time.
So, there's a little trivia for you before we move on to our next figure. So up next, we've got Dr. Yinsen, who you'll remember was the doctor that Tony Stark was in the cave with while he was stranded in the Middle East. Now, I wanted to make sure that I included him as a minifigure for a very specific reason. I feel like this character, Yinsen, does not get the love that he should really deserve in the MCU. Now, I know that he really wasn't around much, and he was basically just in the first Iron Man, And then he was actually in the flashback scene in Iron Man 3. In the first Iron Man, he mentions meeting Tony Stark at a party, and then in the flashback scene in Iron Man 3 at the beginning, we actually see him. But anyways, I'm getting off track here. Without Yinsen saving Tony Stark's life and believing in him, the Earth would have totally lost to Thanos. But even going back, the Earth totally would have lost at the Battle of New York. And if they would have lost at New York, Thanos would have gotten the Tesseract back in 2012, and the snap would have happened a lot sooner. So, honestly, the whole universe has Yinsen to thank for saving him. For saving the universe, that is, and I just feel like he doesn't get enough love. So anyways, I'll stop rambling and tell you which pieces I used to build this figure. Up top, I used the head from Dumbledore from the new Harry Potter collectible minifigure series. Next, I used this torso from the Speed Racer sets a while back. You could also use this torso that I used on the Hank Pym custom, but because that's the same head I used for Hank Pym, I didn't want them to look too similar. So I used that old torso, and then I used these legs from Eric Killmonger. They've showed up in a few other places, don't get me wrong, but I like these legs because they're, you know, like cargo shorts, and they make him look like he's been roughing it in the desert, which he totally has when we find him in the cave with Iron Man in the first movie. So I hope you don't mind my little rant there, but I just feel like this character does not get enough love. Vote in the poll that popped up right now. Do you think Yinsen is the true hero of the Marvel Universe? My vote is yes, and I'll be curious to hear what you guys think. So let's move on to the next figure. Next up, we've got Pepper Potts, and I just chose to use the Pepper from Iron Man 3 because her costume from the first Iron Man movie wasn't really distinct or anything, so the Iron Man 3 version will work perfect. So, no updates here, but it's a great Pepper Potts minifigure. Next up, we've got Happy Hogan, who's a very, very easy figure to build. The body is from Lex Luthor, and the head and hair are actually both from Peter Venkman from the Ghostbusters sets. I think it really looks a lot like Jon Favreau that plays him, and it works out great. And some more Marvel trivia for you, if you didn't already know, Jon Favreau actually directed the first two Iron Man movies, so the guy that plays Happy Hogan directed the first two Iron Mans. Pretty awesome, and I hope that we get to see him again in Avengers 4 or somewhere else down the line, because he's one of my favorite side characters. Next up, we've got Obadiah Stane, and I think that Obadiah Stane works really well with this design. So the suit and the legs here are from J. Jonah Jameson, and the head is from Lor San Tekka from Star Wars. If you don't have Lor San Tekka, I actually think that this guy, I think his name's Hoskins, from Jurassic World would do a great job too to get that goatee that Obadiah Stane has in the first Iron Man movie. So this is a pretty simple figure to build, so let's dive into our last two figures. So next up, we've got Agent Coulson, who made his debut in the MCU in Iron Man, which was awesome.
I'm not a reporter. I'm Agent Phil Coulson with the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division.
That's quite a mouthful.
I know. We're working on it.
You know, we've been approached already by the DoD, the FBI, the CIA.
We're a separate division with a more specific focus. We need to debrief Mr. Stark about the circumstances of his escape.
I'll put something in the book, shall I?
Thank you.
I just used the basic Coulson figure from the Lego Marvel sets, which I really like the aviators that they gave him because they really make him look a lot like Clark Gregg. So, a very simple figure, and if you've already got him in your collection, well then, you don't need to make any updates because this figure works perfect. And just like the actual movie, we've got Nick Fury showing up at the tail end.
You think you're the only superhero in the world? Mr. Stark, you become part of a bigger universe. You just don't know it yet.
Who the hell are you?
Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh.
I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative.
So I just used the regular Nick Fury that came with the helicarrier because it's a pretty accurate MCU look, and Nick Fury doesn't really change his outfits too often in the MCU, so we might as well just stick with this one. I always loved this figure, and man, rewinding the clocks back, I remember seeing the first Iron Man in theaters with my dad and staying for that post-credit scene and just being blown away. Back in 2008, I could barely even conceive the idea of a big cinematic universe with all these characters crossing over and stuff, and it's happening now as we're on the road to Avengers 4. So that wraps up my showcase. I hope that you guys really enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed making it, and I hope that you guys are excited for this week-by-week series leading up to Avengers 4. So, drop a comment below letting me know who your favorite character was from Iron Man, and let me know who you're most excited to see next week for The Incredible Hulk. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the like button. So, thanks for supporting my channel, thanks for checking out today's video, and I'll see you on the next video. So until next time, build on. If you liked what you saw and you liked what you heard, feel free to click that subscribe button for more LEGO content coming in the near future. So, thanks for tuning in to today's video, and until next time, build on.